You're listening to the Believe in Giants podcast with two-time Super Bowl winner Carl Banks and the voice of the Giants, Bob Papa.
Welcome to another edition of Believe in Giants. Bob Papa, two-time Super Bowl champion Carl Banks, presented by FanDuel as we get you set for the Giants and the Denver Broncos, Mile High City on Sunday. Carl, I was looking at Big Blue VCR, and you always post all this stuff, and you had a memorable game in Denver, you guys, against the Broncos back in 1989 in the snow in John Elway. You had a memorable one at home against Denver, but what was it like playing in front of that fan base?
It's super loud, and it's a lot of fun. They're very energetic. People always ask the question about the altitude. I think the altitude only factors in when there's anxiety, right? When there's the crowd is into it and you're breathing heavy and you're trying to get your composure, is when you really kind of feel the altitude there. But it's exciting. They are a 12th man there. I think their crowd is underrated when it comes to NFL noise, but they bring it.
Carl, this is a team that has 30 sacks on the season. They're coming off a 9-sack performance against the Jets last week. Enter Jaxson Dart, who's making his 4th start now in a row for the Giants. And, it's been a big difference, right? Since he has taken over as the starting quarterback, they're hitting their third downs at 51%. 7 of their 9 red zone touchdowns have come since Dart has become the starting quarterback. And he's rushed for over 50 yards in each of the first 3 games. Only Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts have done that in their first 3 career starts, which is why the Giants are averaging 156 yards rushing. Is the run game the key to this whole thing on Sunday?
Yeah. I think this team has to stay on schedule. And I spent a lot of time this week looking at both sides of the football for Denver. And I think for the Giants, they got to do what they do best, right? You can't worry too much about the magic of Vance Joseph and their players. They've got really good players. Their defense kind of mirrors, from a talent perspective, a lot of what the Giants do up front. They've got big guys in the middle who are very skillful. Obviously, their 2 edge players are good. They've got one hell of a safety back there, and they got, a world premier cornerback. And so they can put you into some situations, and that's what they want to do with the Giants, to force these must-have situations. I think for the Giants, it's a matter of, just doing what you do best. You got to get them blocked up. You take what they give you and then some. And try to stay on schedule, because when your offense is on schedule, it's only so much a defense can do. And clearly the conversations, if I'm reading into defensive speak, Jonathan Cooper, did his presser, and he talked about Jaxson Dart feeling himself a little bit, and that he's nobody that they haven't encountered before. He wasn't being disrespectful, but you can kind of tell, it's been a conversation about this kid's swagger in their locker room. And, he talked about, he walks around with his gold chain on, and, that's their conversation. So I can assume that they think that Jaxson Dart needs to be humbled a little bit. I think it's a mistake to think that that's all that Jaxson Dart is about. He's going to prepare for you just like you're a world-beating defense. He's going to prepare for you like the defense that you are. He's going to have fun doing it. But to think that, he's just a run-around kid who wears a gold chain and smiles a lot from New York or playing in New York, it's going to be a mistake. He's going to prepare. His team is going to prepare. His coaches are going to prepare him, and he understands the type of defense that Denver is. You're going to have to understand what their mission is too. The Giants, are doing some really good things offensively. And this quarterback is not making bad decisions. And, his job is not to make bad decisions when they get to Denver.
Right. And, you talked about this Denver defense. Not only is Surtain the reigning defensive player of the year, but, Allen's got his sacks. I think Allen and Bonitto are tied for the most quarterback hits in the league with 16 each. And Riley Moss is playing really good corner on the other side. And then when we take a look at them defensively, I just want to grab my depth charts right here. Hufanga is doing a really good job for them. He's a really good player who came over from the San Francisco 49ers. But Brandon Jones, the former Miami Dolphin, who they signed last year, he's having an impactful season at safety. He's got 38 tackles. He's got a half a sack. He's got an interception. Really, if you look at all three levels of their defense, from their front to their inside backers to their corners to their safeties, it's a very solid group, Carl.
Oh, they're more than solid. They're very talented, Bob. It's probably constructed front to the secondary, probably one of the more talented groups in the NFL. That said, you got to do your job, right? Everybody puts them on the same way. And then they have their offense, right? So the Giants have to protect their quarterback. The Giants have to run the football. The Giants play a physical brand of football, and they have to stick to that. They can't become a finesse team against a team like the Broncos. The 12 personnel has been good. They've got, 3 backs now that they can rotate in this thing and keep the pace different. It's going to be fun to watch because, there's a lot said about Bonitto and all of his teammates, but Bonitto in particular, he's an explosive kid, does everything well. I wonder how it looks if he's got to defend the run and never get his opportunities to get in those third and long situations. That's what the Giants need to do to neutralize their pass rush, is to keep the manageable down and distance, make them play the run, make them honor the run, get your 3, 4, 5 yards and stay on schedule. That neutralizes naturally a pass rush. When you get behind the chains, that's when those guys are most effective. When most really good pass rushers are most effective is when you're behind the chains and you can, when Vance Joseph can start to change the looks and put doubt in the quarterback's head. So running the football is important. On the offensive side of the ball, they're an interesting group. I would say for the most part, they're an inside run team, very physical inside run team. They have 2 really good backs. I won't say that they've got sprinter speed. They've got power. They have speed. They're a power inside run team that can get the ball to the perimeter. And I think for the Giants to have success, they're going to have to make sure the ball stays between the tackles. The reason I say that, I looked at all of their games offensively, run game in particular. They love running in between the tackles. And the only team that they really didn't do that with was the Philadelphia Eagles. They tried to hit the perimeter on the Eagles. And the Eagles did pretty decent with it. But they were more intentional about running the edges against Philly than they were against any of the other teams that they played. And I'm like, well, it's got to be because of Jalen Carter and, their front and Zach Bond and those guys. And they wanted to get more blockers out on the edge to give themselves a chance. And I'm saying this could very well be the wrinkle that the Giants see offensively for Giants defensively, because they have been pretty intent on how they want to run the football. They get to these inside runs a lot of different ways. Most of the time, even when it doesn't look like it's a fullback leading through, he's leading through, or a tight end who's doubling as a fullback. And if you watch the path of the running back, wherever he goes, he somehow ends up right behind that lead blocker in there. If the Giants choke off the perimeter runs, they're going to have a good day. And I said it yesterday after looking at tape, Tyler Newman might have 15 tackles. He's just got to wrap them up because they're going to have to spill the ball somewhere. He could be the unblocked guy on a lot of these plays if the Giants are doing their job. And then Bo Nix, he's a guy that he's not your typical running quarterback quarterback when he runs. He's a big kid, right? So don't anticipate him always wanting to slide. He's pretty big. You're going to have to really hit him and tackle him because he's nifty. The other part about him that I think is really underrated, but I think it's his strongest suit right now, he can throw on any angle, on the run, across his body, with a great deal of accuracy. And you got to make sure you apply the plaster rules if you're in the defensive backfield and don't become a spectator. Talk about their receivers, and then, there's Evan Ingram.
Yeah, I mean, Bo Nix is having a weird year. He's got 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's lost a fumble. When we were preparing for the Giants-Chargers, I remember watching the coach's tape and saying, man, the Broncos got some guys deep, and Bo Nix just missed them. And, they only have 3 pass plays of over 30 yards this year. And they want to get the ball to Sutton. They want to get the ball to Mims, Franklin, all guys in the teens. All their top guys were numbers in the teens. They kind of all look the same the way they go out there. They want to press the ball down the field. They really just haven't hit it at a normal rate that you would expect. And listen, just reading some of the clips out of Denver, Sean Payton's taking a little heat from the Denver media and fan base as to, hey, look, every team has run it down the Jets' throat. Why were we trying to throw it so much against them? So I wonder if they'll come back to this game a little bit more focused on their run game, which kind of leads me to a guy that has to play better for the Giants right now, and I think that's Dexter Lawrence. I think Dexter has been fine, but he hasn't been Dexter Lawrence, right? Like, there's been plenty of times this year where he's been singled up and he's not winning the way he would. He's obviously getting double teamed, but remember, their starting left guard is out, and former Giant Matt Pert, who cost the Broncos 3 huge plays in the first half, he got hurt, so he got put on injured reserve. So they're down to their 3rd left guard in this football game. And I think the Giants really need, because Carter and Thibodeau and Burns, whichever combination you have, those guys have been really good setting the edge, doing all those things that you want. But I feel like this is a game where the Giants need, Dexter Lawrence to flex a little bit.
So I would say when it comes to Dexter, look at this season as a marathon and not a sprint. There's a lot that teams are dealing with the Giants front, because aside from the big 3 or 4, if we're including Dexter, you got Roy Robinson Harris and Darius Alexander, who have all been impactful players. So the fact
Nacho
that
coming back was big,
correct.
too.
So the fact that you're seeing plays being made by Roy Robinson Harris, plays being made by Darius Alexander, that tells me there's some things that teams are doing to try to neutralize Dexter. And then they're probably schematically, when you've got to incorporate Carter and Tibbs or Carter and Spider, those are two-man games, which kind of leaves him out, right? He could be 1-on-2, and him and Thibodeau are on their own. No stunts or games their way. But I would just say the more this defense evolves, you'll start to see more and more from Dexter Lawrence. The fact that you said he hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been Dexter. Hasn't been bad means that he's doing what is called for within the scheme, but he hasn't Dexterized his responsibility. I think that's going to come because the more diverse that Shane Bowen is getting with how they defend things, it's just going to be hard to contain him. And, people are picking who they don't want to wreck the game for them. And he's been one of them. And that's why you see Alexander making plays every game. You see Roy Robinson Harris every game making plays, Nacho making plays. It'll come. This could be the game, because also in this sport, especially up front, Bob, it's all about matchups. And you find the right matchup that benefits you defensively and you go exploit it. And right now, I think the Broncos are concerned with, do they have enough to match up with the Giants' skilled rushers, right? Who also play the run very well. So they've got some decisions to make too. And when you're down to your third guard, somebody's going to be exploited. It's just a matter of who. But for the Giants, I can't say it enough, and I'll go back to week 1. You're going to have to earn the right to rush the passer against the Broncos. Now, people are asking why the Broncos didn't run the ball down the Jets' throat. If you look at the game, because the Jets had something to do with that. It's not like they didn't try. And this is where, people often, they look at previous games and don't think that teams want to get better at what they are, being exploited with. The Jets have always been a good defense against the run. They've given up their share, but they've had good players. And, their best player was out that game too. But the Jets had something to do with it. It's not like they didn't try the same type of runs that they had success with previous weeks. They just didn't have enough success for them to say, okay, here we go. We're just going to pound it and stay on schedule. The Jets had a lot to do with them being off schedule.
And if they can get that run game going, they might be able to get Evan Ingram going. Now, Ingram was a factor in the game against the Jets. He had some key catches. But so far on the season, 17 catches, 137 yards. He's averaging 8.1 a catch. And he's got 1 touchdown, and they've also handed it off to him once. The Giants went against Lawrence back in 2022 when he was with the Jaguars. He had 4 catches for 67 yards going against Ingram. Said Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence was the quarterback. But I think that, the tight end, if I'm Sean Payton, right, what am I saying to myself? Goddard ate him up. Tight ends have kind of had success against the Giants, especially in the middle of the field. So if the Giants can control the run, how do the Giants also not allow tight ends to just gash them? Because that has been an issue this year. It feels like it's been an issue for like the last 5 years.
Yeah. So I talked about Tyler Newman may have a ton of tackles this game, but it also leaves you vulnerable to play action to a tight end. So the easiest way to offset a strong run defense is play action to a tight end, because tight ends are often involved in the blocking for runs. So they're the easiest one to get out into coverage because they can give you the same look and release. You just have to pay attention to where Evan Ingram is because he's not their main inline guy. He's more of their hybrid receiver type. They've got their main inline tight ends.
Yeah, they use Troutman and Atkins 45 as the guy that plays fullback / tight end.
Right. So if you see Evan Ingram lined up in line and it looks like it's going to be a run, you got to have an alert right away that he's going out for a pass because they don't use him in that capacity. Also, you got to look when he's lined up close to, if he's in that slot, but he's in line close, he's a possession guy who can either come in and, fake a crack block and run a little curl or a hook at the sticks. So you really do have to pay attention. But it's a team effort. And Tyler Nubin is your secondary defender in terms of defending the run. If the core 7 do their job, it's going to spill to him. He doesn't have to be overly aggressive, meaning Tyler Nubin. Just keep his eyes open and see the ball, take good angles, and tackle. Assuming that everybody does the job that they're supposed to do. Again, the Giants will have to keep the ball inside. Again, they did not run the ball outside a whole lot against anybody but the Eagles. And the reason they did it against the Eagles is because they couldn't run it on the inside with any consistency. So they hit them a couple times, outnumbered them out on the edges. Giants turn that back inside, then they're going to have to stay with their interior run game, and that's where I think the Giants can really play the game on their terms. But the off-schedule plays of Bo Nix is what really concerns me more than anything. I don't think their backs are, the type of backs that get to the edges and break them for big ones. They're going to hit through the middle. They got breakaway speed. I'm not saying they don't, but they're built for the physical run game. They're built for the internal, one cut, get vertical run game. So the Giants will have to get those guys taken care of. And if they do, they're going to probe how they can run the ball externally. I mean, on the exterior, it's either going to be a wide receiver or a toss or something like that. And once they turn that in, the Giants will have the game defensively where they need it to be.
Harvey has a run of 50 yards. Dobbins has a 46-yarder and a 23-yarder. So they have 3 runs of over 20 yards. The Giants have 3. Scadaboo has 24-yard run, and Dart has 2 20-yard runs. One of the things that the Giants, especially since Jaxson Dart's put in there, but I got to give Russell Wilson his credit because some of these came against the Cowboys, but they got to hit the explosive plays when they're available. Like, the little Jordan Humphrey who played and had a good year for the Broncos last year. That jump ball on 3rd down, 34 yards, hands strong. You got to make those plays. Like last year, the Giants had 12 pass plays of 30 or more yards and 4 touchdowns. This year, they have 6 already, and 3 have gone for scores. And it could be like Wan'Dale Robinson breaking tackles and then getting receivers to help. But when the opportunities come against this very stingy defense, right, they're going to have to make those plays. You know who I think is a little bit of a key in this game for me, Carl?
Who's that?
Well, look, Scadaboo, right? The legend of Scadaboo is growing, right? I'm down here in Ponte Vedra, Florida, and I'm at the flag football practice or whatever, and the tackle football game is starting for like the middle school, and people are just talking about Scadaboo. We're hearing this is not New Jersey. This is Ponte Vedra. Right. Scadaboo. But you know what I think is an important factor in all this is Tyrone Tracy, because you have Scadaboo adding that physical pounding. They need to get Tyrone Tracy going too, in the sense that like when Scadaboo's doing his thing, and I saw Tracy and Scadaboo in the game at the same time, but like they need Tracy to crack one with that speed, right? and to create that dual action threat with the running backs. And hopefully Tyrone, as he's coming back from this injury, can have a little bit more of an impact.
Yeah, I think, again, their back rotation gives them a change of pace. Both guys will run pretty hard. I think with Scatterboo, he runs with a little bit more violence than Tyrone Tracy. Tyrone can make you miss. He can catch it out of the backfield too. They're both dual threat guys, and they give you a different pace. Off the same blocks, off the same runs, they run it differently, which is a plus. I talk about Denver's two backs that they use. They run the same plays. I'm not going to say they look exactly the same, but they look the same, right? They're similar running styles, similar power. One has a little bit more wiggle, but their plays look the same. The Giants can run similar plays, and they can look different just based on the running styles of their backs. So this is going to be a tall order. Obviously, playing against a tough defense, you've got to make sure, especially in Denver, that your procedural calls don't set you back before you can even get the ball snapped, meaning offsides, illegal motion, letting the clock run out on you, get the play in, get the call set, get your guys ready to go. Because
they did it well in New Orleans until they needed them to not happen. Right.
But they have to be that type of team. Get out of the huddle early, get the call in early, make sure the quarterback knows what he's got, and then communicate. And also, I'm not sure if John Michael Schmitz is going to be cleared, but communication is important. I'm sure they've talked about that all week, and they've practiced it, but it's even more important when you have a backup center in there.
Yeah, and Schlotman did a really good job. There was no bad snaps. There was no procedural penalties. Of course, it was a home game. Now you're going to have to do it on the road. But I love the fact that they were able to plug somebody in and not have to move Van Roten and then put somebody else in at guard. Like, okay, let's just fill in this one spot. And as of this recording, we don't know about Slayton. We don't know about John Michael Schmitz as far as their availability for the game. Hey, while we have a moment, look, Carl, we all like to protect our data. And there's a product out there that can help everyone. Delete Me makes it easy and quick and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everybody vulnerable. It's a commodity. There's data brokers out there, right? There's people out there that steal your information. They take your name, your contact info, social security, home address, family members. In fact, New York Times Wirecutter says Delete Me is their top pick for data removal services. And Carl, you and I are actively online on social media. I'm sure it's something that concerns you, right?
100%. And I'll be honest with you, the data brokers have really got my information out there. And, there's a few trademarks I have that I got all these lawyers calling me saying, hey, I think your trademark is expiring. Hey, I want to talk to you about, I'm like, where'd you get my number from? Right. And obviously the United States Patent and Trademark Office has some kind of public domain stuff where the owner of trademarks are kind of visible, but like it's like an alarm went off and everybody's calling me from all over the country. So I'm like, I got a trademark attorney, or I know how to find one if I need you. Thank you very much. But I start to get a lot of this, and then it's the people who want to pave your driveway and they got your number and they're citing your address and it's in another state. And I'm like,
or how about unpaid tolls in Thailand?
Oh, that's a beautiful one. Yeah, I'm getting, first it was the calls. First it was the text messages. Now it's the call saying that I need your credit card because you're in a toll violation and we need $800 today. I'm like, I'm opening my Easy Pass account, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, where? And it just constantly comes. So yes, Delete Me is the tool to have.
Take control of your data. Keep your private life private. Sign up for Delete Me right now. A special discount for you listening and watching this show. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to deleteme.com/pro. Then use the promo code PRO, P-R-O, at the checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/pro and then enter the promo code PRO at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/pro. Promo code is PRO. Mile High City, Giants and Denver Broncos, Carl. I'm fired up for this game. Here's a little fun fact for you. You know, it's an AFC team. The schedule is on this set rotation with the exception of the 17th game. So the Giants haven't been in Denver since 2017. Did you know the last time the Giants were in Denver, they beat the Broncos 23-10. Eli Manning was the quarterback. You know who had the key touchdown catch in the game?
Ooh.
Evan Ingram.
There you go. This is going to be a fun game. And the other part, the challenge for the Giants, you know, they're scoring a lot of points now. And Denver doesn't allow a lot of points. So I want to see how that matches up. You know, obviously we know the Giants can play low-scoring games, but they haven't been on the winning end of some of those. But the fact that this offensive output has been really good, that's got to be challenging for the Broncos. And, you know, this 12 personnel is, you know, a guy like Chris Manhertz. The reason he's on this roster, one of the main reasons is that he can block edge rushers. He can block them in the run game, and he can block them in the pass game. And he can catch. And every one of the tight ends on this roster are required to be a part of the run game blocking.
Correct.
And that's why we see the production that we have. You don't cut on the film. Like I take, for instance, the New Orleans game, right? As I'm preparing for that game, I looked at their group of tight ends. I said, they're liabilities. They're liabilities. You got one guy who catches a lot of balls. None of them can block, right? You cut the Giants on and you say they can all block and they can all catch. They are an integral part of what the Giants like to do. So that'll be the key to neutralizing some of their pass rush as well. And so I want to veer off for a quick second because, you know, as we get close to the trade deadline and, you know, people are asking me a lot of questions about, you know, players who are available and receivers and what receiver the Giants should trade for. I have no idea, people. If the Giants are trading for a receiver or who they should trade for. I will say this. As you view roster building, view it from a lens of, or as you look at this trade market coming up, look at it from a lens of roster building. Whoever they bring, if they decide to bring a wide receiver in, which I have no knowledge of, that receiver can't be a stopgap. That receiver has to fit within their growth plan for the position and for the team. So, you know, a lot of names get popped out there and you got to trade this guy for this guy. If he doesn't fit, I mean, they're not in it to replace Malik Neighbors. They're in it to complement Malik Neighbors and the rest of the crew. So as you think of that, you have to think about players that fit within what they want to do long-term. And then here's the other part of it. They're receivers in the draft every year. So the Giants have to ask themselves, whatever the position is, does this player make us better long-term, or should we be looking at a draft that has a particular position that's very strong as we build our roster? Because trades take assets and they take money. And when you look at some of the names that folks have been tossing out at wide receiver, they're not cheap, you know, and you don't want a guy who's an anchor on your salary cap just because he's a name, and you think you're not replacing Neighbors. You're complementing Neighbors in the rest of the receiver group. And you're looking to upgrade it, but it's a long-term deal.
He has to be somebody that is in your plans moving forward. If
Correct.
the Giants were 5-1, you could say, okay, they're in a move mindset here for a rental.
Sure.
But at 2-4, and we don't know what's going to happen over these next 3 difficult games in Denver, at Philadelphia, home against San Francisco, whoever you go get, right? Because remember, Slayton, you're on the hook for Slayton for next year too. The third year, he has no guaranteed money. So you can get out of his deal after next year. So you got to figure dollars and cents. You also have to factor into the account that in order to trade back into the first round to get Jaxson Dart, you gave up assets. So you're down a pick. So all these things come into play. But I think you make a very smart point that if you do make a move for a receiver, this is somebody that you envision being part of your program to complement Malik Neighbors next year when he's back.
Yeah, and then also another thing that people have, when they're proposing these trades, from a roster building standpoint, I would look at how a move strengthens or weakens your roster. A lot of people have put out there, well, they should trade Thibodeau for X.
No.
So as you guys dream of these scenarios, you have a strength that you don't want to make weak, right? And that goes for a lot of areas. And quite honestly, I don't even know which rumor had been out there also is at the cornerback position, Deonte Banks could be on the trade. I don't know. But if he's playing now and you take him away and what's behind him, you just weakened your roster. There are players that if they're not problem childs or problem children, and they are giving you something and they factor into your plans, unless somebody blows you away with an offer, they're part of your success moving forward, at least through the season. You don't want to weaken your team by trading off a name to get another name. You got to look at where your strengths are.
Look at the injuries around the league on a weekly basis. Right now, you have a strength with Burns, Thibodeau, and Carter. You picked up the 5th-year option for Thibodeau. You have no idea what's going to happen this week or the week after or the week after that as far as injuries are concerned. Nobody's bulletproof. No, you don't weaken what is your greatest strength and just roll with 2. And then what happens if one of those 2 gets hurt? Then it's going to be like, what do we? I don't agree with that. I don't think they're going to go in that direction.
Sometimes people get I mean, they get into this mode of, just a name for a name. I'd get rid of this guy and bring this guy in. But what you have to realize is, are you making your team weaker by bringing a guy in you like? Like, you got to get rid of somebody to bring somebody in. So I just think you have to look at how a player factors into your long-term, not just your short-term thinking, because they're building. They're not trying to weaken themselves for a brand name who maybe they can't even afford after, they're a rental. Then you're starting all over again. So those are things that folks, when you play this game of who should we trade, who should we get, the big name that's out there, you got to ask yourself how it factors into and how it impacts your roster moving forward beyond this year.
Carl, my final thought about this game, in order to beat a team as good as the Broncos on the road, right? This is a game in which they're going to have to do what they did against Philadelphia. There's going to be a jump ball that a little Jordan Humphrey has to come down with, or whomever it is. You're going to have to make some above the X's and O's plays, right? And in the Giants' wins, they've done that. And in the loss against New Orleans, they didn't do that. And to me, that's going to be a big factor in this game. I think if Slayton is back and he can play, and as of this recording, we do not know, I would expect him to bounce back. He's been a pro's pro. But they can't miss a flea flicker. They can't miss a deep post. It can't be overthrown. It can't be dropped, because they're going to only give you a couple of opportunities in this game.
Sure.
And you better hit them or else you're going to lose, and you can't turn it over.
Yeah, I think you're 100% correct there. For me, the key is lean into what your personality is now, and that's physical football. They're playing Giants football now, both sides of the ball. Stay with that. Don't try to out-finesse Sean Payton. Make it a street fight. You guys got enough skill. It's like, I love the boxing analogies, but it's like Sugar Ray Leonard. Leonard could get in a street brawl with you, but he got enough skill to move and get out of the way and pick you apart too. But you got to be that guy. You got to be a physical team that has a skill set to do other things to pick you apart. And I think that's what the Giants are, because you've got a Scatterboo who can bloody your nose, and then you can spread him out. He can catch the ball. They can do a lot of things, but above all, their DNA right now is a physical football team. They've got to stay that.
All right. If you want to get the mugs, go to the Believe shop. We got the tumblers. Tell a friend to tell a friend. And by the way, Carl, where can we get this beautiful sweatshirt or something like it? Maybe you sold this out.
That sweatshirt was the training camp sweatshirt. I think it's sold out. Roy Robinson Harris just asked me for it. I thought I had a 3X at the house, but I don't. But all things starter.com, you can see a lot of our New York Giants stuff there. Some really cool stuff.
All right. We want to thank the people at FanDuel for supporting us as well. Carl, how do we like to end this thing?
Tell a friend to tell a friend.
Believe in Giants.